Welcome back to Homicide Highway. I'm your host, Kirsty McQueen, and today we're entering the world of Herman Webster Mudgett, better known as H. Holmes. Holmes has gone down in history as America's first serial killer. He wasn't just a murderer, he was a con man, a manipulator, and a builder of nightmares. Now, his infamous murder castle in Chicago became a trap for the desperate and the unwary. But beyond the legend lies the question, who was H. Holmes really? Was he a criminal mastermind, a psychopath ahead of his time, or the creation of a sensationalist press hungry for lurid headlines? Let's go deeper. Holmes was born in 1861 in the small farming town of Gilmanton, New Hampshire. He was the third child of Levi Horton Mudgett and Theodate Page Price. Both his parents were devout Methodists. His father was known as a stern and often abusive, reportedly using isolation and food deprivation as punishment. Accounts suggest Holmes was often a target of bullying at school because of his odd behaviour and superior attitude. In one notorious childhood story, Holmes was dragged by bullies into a doctor's office, forced to touch a skeleton. Rather than being traumatized, he was captivated by the sight of human bones. In this moment, though possibly exaggerated, highlights a recurring theme. Holmes was never repelled by death, he was fascinated by it. From a developmental psychological perspective, Holmes displayed early signs of what is known today as conduct disorder, deceitfulness, cruelty, and a lack of empathy. Combined with high intelligence, this is a dangerous cocktail that can evolve into adult psychopathy. Holmes excelled academically, especially in biology and chemistry. In 1882, he enrolled at the University of Michigan's Department of Medicine and Surgery. But here's where things take a darker turn. Instead of simply studying cadavers, Holmes began profiting from them. He stole bodies, mutilated them, and staged fake accidents. He then filled fraudulent insurance claims using these corpses. Now, this wasn't just about money, it was about control and deceit. He was learning how to manipulate not just people, but systems. Now, Holmes represents what psychologists call the organized offender. He was not impulsive. His crimes were rehearsed, calculated, and motivated as much by intellectual challenge as by greed or lust. In 1886, Holmes arrived in Chicago, then to a booming city preparing for the 1893 World's Columbian Exposition. Now, Holmes bought land in Englewood, where he began building what newspapers later called the Murder Castle. On the outside, it appeared to be a large, respectable hotel, but the inside was a maze of horrors. The features of this murder castle included hallways that led nowhere, hidden chutes to the basement, soundproof rooms, sealed chambers with gas pipes, a walk-in vault, a basement equipped with acid vats, lime pits, and a crematorium furnace. Holmes specifically designed the castle to lure women, particularly young women travelling to Chicago alone for work during the fair. He employed them, seduced them, and in many cases they were never seen again. While not all deaths can be proven, some names stand out. Julia Smith Connor, who disappeared along with her daughter after an affair with Holmes. Emmeline Sigrand, I'm sure that's how you say her name. I do apologise if I've butchered it. a former secretary believed to have been locked in a vault, and the Pitzel children, lured under the guise of safety but later killed. The castle was essentially a weapon. The architecture itself created fear and gave Holmes complete dominance over his victims' fates. Despite his sinister design, Holmes's undoing wasn't murder, it was fraud. He was perpetually in debt, constantly scheming new ways to extend money. Now, his biggest con involved Benjamin Pitzel, a business associate. Holmes convinced Pitzel to fake his own death for insurance money, but instead Holmes murdered him. Worse, Holmes took custody of Pitzel's children, Alice, Nellie, and Howard, under the guise of helping them. Tragically, all three were murdered by Holmes in different locations. This horrific crime caught investigators' attention. Holmes was arrested in 1894 for insurance fraud, but soon investigators uncovered the trail of disappearances linked to him. In 1895, Holmes went on trial for the murder of Benjamin Pitzel. Witnesses described him as his charm, his calm demeanor, and his total lack of remorse. Holmes eventually confessed to 27 murders, though many believe the true number was far higher, perhaps over 100. Some historians argue the number of victims has been exaggerated by sensationalist newspapers over time. Now, a Holmes quote from his own words, he said, "I was born with the devil in me. I could not help the fact that I was a murderer no more than the poet can help the inspiration to sing." I mean, that's just ludicrous, isn't it? Now, this chilling confession offers a rare glimpse into his mindset. Holmes was executed by hanging on May the 7th, 1896 in Philadelphia. Witnesses reported that his neck did not break instantly, and he hung for nearly 20 minutes before being pronounced dead. But even in death, Holmes exerted control. He requested to be buried in a coffin filled with cement to prevent grave robbers from exhuming his body. It's a bit contradictory there, Mr. Holmes. The murder castle was partially demolished by fire in 1895 and later torn down. Holmes remains a symbol of calculated evil, part fact, part legend. His case contributed to the growing field of criminal psychology in America. Now, the professional closing analysis is: Holmes illustrates the perfect storm: intelligence without empathy, charm without conscience, and opportunity without restraint. His legality and his legacy is not just the body count, but the reminder of how charisma can cloak monstrosity. Before we close, let's clear something up. Much of what we think we know about H. Holmes comes from sensational newspaper stories of the late 1800s. The press at the time thrived on lurid details, and Holmes was the perfect subject. Myth number 1. The castle killed hundreds during the World's Fair. The Chicago murder castle is often described as a slaughterhouse for foreign goers and fairgoers. Now, with estimates of 200 victims, in reality, there is no evidence that droves of tourists were murdered there. Most documented victims were people close to Holmes, employees, mistresses, and associates. Myth number 2. The castle was a fully automated murder factory. Now, while the building did have strange features, trapdoors, secret rooms, and a furnace, some claims about acid pools, stretching racks, and torture chambers came from exaggerated news stories. Historians argue that many of the castle's odd designs were simply a result of Holmes constantly firing contractors, so no one would understand the building's full layout. Myth number 3. Holmes confessed truthfully to all his victims. Holmes confessed to 27 murders, but he also retracted and contradicted himself, sometimes confessing to killings that never happened. His final confession was published in a newspaper, lightly embellished for money and attention. When it comes to H. Holmes, the legend often overshadows the truth. While he was unquestionably a murderer and a conman, the narrative of the World's Fair mass murderer was largely a product of yellow journalism. So what's the reality? Holmes was certainly a killer. He murdered associates, lovers, and even children. But he wasn't a supernatural genius with a death factory. He was a con man who used charm and deception, and when people become inconvenient, he eliminated them. So that's all for this episode on Homicide Highway. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the life and psychology of H. Holmes, make sure to subscribe, share, and leave a review. See you next time.